Rebecca, now 40 years old, lives in an apartment complex in Chicago. She has become great friends with her 6-year-old neighbor, Murray. Murray is a shy little girl with a stutter who doesn't have many friends. They decided to go on a walk with Rebecca's 12 cats to enjoy the wonderful weather. As they were walking, Rebecca realized that she didn't have any more potatoes at home for tomorrow night's dinner.
Oh no! I forgot I don't have potatoes for tomorrow night's dinner. Wait right here. I'll be right back.
She quickly ran into Allen's Market, leaving Murray outside alone with the cats. Murray, in her curiosity, walks off with the cats toward a park across the street from the store. Little does she know that an eagerly awaiting Halsey Johnson was sitting on the park bench. He hobbled over to the little girl and started to ask her questions about herself and Rebecca.
Hello,
Hi.
what's your name?
I'm not supposed to tell strangers my name.
Well, I'm not a stranger. Becca is my daughter. She doesn't realize that I am here though. She ran away when she was a young girl and just a little older than you. I haven't seen her since. Do you know where she is?
No, I shouldn't be talking to you.
Murray got frightened by all of these questions and tried to get away. After what Halsey had mentioned about Rebecca, she knew she didn't want to go back to her either. Halsey was not going to give up easily and follows Murray further into the park. Rebecca comes out of the store to find that Murray is missing. She is worried and searches all around for her, but never thinks to check the park. After hours of searching, she finally returns home and decides to file a missing persons report in the morning.
Micah arrives at Allen's Market and went in to talk to the owner. He pulled out his picture of Rebecca and Murray.
Did you see either of these people last night?
Oh yes, the woman came in here last night and bought a sack of potatoes. The little girl was outside with 12 cats. They weren't here for long. I think I saw the little girl walk across the street to the park though.
Thank you.
Headed across the street to the park. He had been walking for a little while when he came across a homeless man lying on a bench. He grabbed his pictures of Rebecca and Murray.
Excuse me, sir, what is your name?
Halsey Johnson.
Hello, Mr. Johnson. I am Detective Magambo from the CPD. Have you seen either one of these people?
Yes, that's my daughter Rebecca and the little girl seen with her last night across the street. I haven't seen my daughter in 30 years, since she left when she was 10 years old, after something horrible happened to our family.
What kind of things?
I prefer not to say. I don't want to bring her back into it again.
Well, if you don't tell me, I don't need you to come down to the station with me for some questioning.
Detective Magambo brought Halsey to the Chicago Police Department and questioned him about his daughter Rebecca.
What can you tell me about what happened to your daughter 30 years ago?
She and my wife were very close. One night they were walking down the street and a 50-year-old man came out and held a gun to my wife and tried to take her money. She refused and the man shot her. Rebecca was so frightened she ran home and wouldn't speak for a long time. So she had to go through all kinds of therapy just to get her back to functioning again.
Thank you. That information would be very helpful in our investigation.
Kind of investigation.
The little girl in this picture was reported missing last night. She was last seen with your daughter at Allen's Market, and then she was seen walking over into the park.
I recognize that little girl. I talked to her last night. I think I would frighten her. She ran off further into the park and I followed her because I didn't want her to become lost. Eventually I lost her though, and I came back to the bench where we found me and went to sleep.
You're sure about that?
Yes, I wouldn't tell a lie, but that if she is missing.
We would like to keep you here for a bit longer, just in case anything else comes up in the investigation.
Okay, I'm more than willing to help with anything that I can.
Detective Magambo headed back over to the park to do more searching to see if he could find any more evidence about where Murray had gone. He was walking through the park as he came around the corner, he saw that a large area of bushes had been smashed down. He went in to check it out and found Murray lying there with 9 cats lying around her in the brush. He pulled out his phone and called the station.
Hello, we need officers and CSI down to the park on 15th Avenue. I just found our missing person. We need to bring Rebecca Burton in for questioning too.
is interviewing Rebecca about the death of Murray. They are sitting in the typical interview room, and Micah throws down a packet of evidence.
Don't worry, Rebecca. We aren't accusing you of anything unless you confess to the crime. We're more interested in your father.
What do you want to know?
We have reason to believe that he murdered Murray out of sheer anger.
My father wouldn't do such a thing.
We have evidence telling us otherwise.
My father wouldn't harm a soul.
We need to answer a few questions clarifying a few outlying pieces of evidence.
Why would I choose to betray my own father?
Because we could give you some time for assisting in the murder. And believe me when I say jail is not as forgiving as we are.
Okay, I will.
How long has it been since you've seen your father?
About 30 years or so.
Can you tell me why it's been that long?
He became so depressed and deeply saddened after my mother died that we never could talk anymore. I thought we would never be happy again, so I took off. I didn't realize at the time that my father would sink down even further than before he hit the bar. I can see why he would become angry. Everyone he loved and cared about abandoned him and left him with nothing to live for. Nothing but revenge and the anger that follows.
Who did you live with for the next 8 years?
Luckily, my grandparents only lived 2 hours northeast of here. I called them and asked for instructions, saying I was visiting them alone since Daddy needed some time to focus on work.
How did you manage that?
I followed random strangers to the gate, holding onto their coats, and waited until the train conductor announced that we arrived at their city. I was a smart child, but most of it was done out of fear and natural instinct. I used to hold onto my mother's coat when walking through public places. I followed people until I saw familiar streets and shops and signs from many previous trips. We would go up there every summer for at least a month at a time. I looked around the town until I saw my grandparents' sign at the beginning of the driveway leading down into the woods by the creek, where I used to spend the entire day with Dad, fishing, skipping stones, swimming, anything you could do in the water, we did. Once I arrived at the door, I was greeted with unusual kisses and hugs and candy until the realization came across their faces that no adult was present, not even a taxi driver. That's when I told them what had happened and convinced them to let me stay with them until Dad came out of his state of seemingly endless depression. He never did so. I stayed with them until I graduated and met Murray's parents. They cared for me and let me stay in their guest room for so cheap it was almost free. So when they had Murray, I felt like she was my child too. I cared for her while they worked, and we became the best of friends no matter the age gap.
Because you had such a strong bond with Murray, do you think it's possible that your father became frustrated with that bond you and Murray had, that you and your father didn't? Do you think that by killing her, you would come back to him for comfort and reconnect your long-forgotten father-daughter bond?
I guess it's possible.
Thank you for your time. We'll call you if you have any more questions.
Everybody related to the murder, including Murray's parents, Rebecca, Halsey, Detective Magambo, and all evidence so far gathered in the experiment. No one else knows that Halsey's lawyer has uncovered some crucial evidence that just about solves the case altogether.
Order in the court!
The opposing lawyers give their opening statements and the battle officially begins.
The defense calls Rebecca to the stands to testify before the court. Repeat after me. I swear that the evidence that I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God. I solemnly affirm that the evidence that I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. You may be seated. How would you describe your relationship with your father as a child?
We were very close, and I had a very fun childhood, probably one of the best.
Did you consider him as a loving, caring, and a gentle father?
One of the best.
Did he ever hit you or become extremely angry at any time during your childhood?
Not that I remember, and I remember everything.
The defense rests, Your Honor.
You mentioned everything about your father when you were young, but what about now? How's your relationship with your father today?
I would describe it as distant.
Why would you say that? You say you were close in your childhood, so why aren't you close now?
There was an accident when I was about 10 or so, and since then we kind of drifted apart.
What kind of accident? Please describe.
My mother passed away from a stick-up. A man tried to rob us, and she refused to give up her money. So he shot her out of pure greed. I mean, what kind of man becomes so obsessed with something that he's willing to give up his moral obligations in order to fulfill those disasterly earthly desires?
I understand that must have been difficult losing your mother at such a young age. I still have a few more questions for you, though. Does your father have anger issues?
He's diagnosed with them, but he's never lashed out at me before.
Do you know that your father has had 3 other wives before your mother?
What?
All of these were divorces filed by the wife complaining about his uncontrolled temper. Has he told you this?
Absolutely not. Why are you telling me this?
Because of his past that you now know of, could you see your father harming another innocent young woman, possibly murdering?
Objection. Fact not in evidence.
Sustained government, you'll need evidence to back up the questions. If you don't have the evidence, don't ask the questions.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, you may be seated.
The defense calls Detective Michael Magambo to the stand. Repeat after me. I swear that the evidence that I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Solemnly affirm that the evidence that I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you. You may be seated. Where were you on the night of Murray's murder?
That's funny. I don't remember.
Has this been happening a lot lately? Not being able to remember where you were and when? Is it true that you were diagnosed with multiple personality disorder a year and a half ago?
Well, yes, but what does that have to do with this investigation?
Your Honor, we have received the medical records of Detective Magambo. They show that he was diagnosed approximately a year and a half ago with multiple personality disorder, as well as post-traumatic stress disorder from his service in the Army during Vietnam. We have received the professional opinion of Dr. William Glazer on Detective Magambo's condition. He believes that this combination of disorders and the severity of each is likely to cause moments of complete memory loss and possible irrational behaviors. If the detective could show us his arm.
Objection! Reasoning?
What is your reasoning?
The medical examiner on this case sent us these labs this morning. They ran DNA tests on the skin cells and blood found under Murray's nails. They were shocked at the results, and so they ran them again, but the results came back the same as before. The DNA belonged to Detective Magambo.
There must be a mistake. I've never heard anyone.
Now, Detective, will you please hold out your arm for the judge and jury to see?
As Detective Magambo holds out his arm and rolls up his sleeve, you can see a large gash down his forearm.
The fingerprints on Murray's neck from strangulation also match those of the detective. CSI also sent over this mold of a boot print left at the scene. Detective, could I have you stand down here? To paint the bottom of your shoes and have you stand on this sheet of paper. Now remove your foot. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, the print here and the mold from the scene are a perfect match.
Detective Magambo, I'm afraid that the evidence is just piling up against you. We will have a short recess to allow the jury to reach their verdict.
Everyone enters the courtroom again, and there is a tense atmosphere in the room.
Jury, what is your verdict?
We have found the detective guilty of the murder of Murray Lesky. He has been sentenced to 65 years in federal prison and will lose his position on the Chicago Police Force.
The jury has reached their verdict.